I love this quote by Steven Pinker. It gives me this idea of how language and ideas work together. But what happens when the language of ideas is a second language? It is then we have to make some choices of action. Choices of action that have to do with bilingual implementation. My name is Mary Griffith, and I'm here to tell you about my project at the University of Malaga. What we're really going to do is take a snapshot into the computer science classroom, where we'll be integrating content and language in higher education. This language learning context is quite complex. Spanish teachers with Spanish students teaching through the medium of English. It's an uncomfortable, functional context. The research context gives us different directions to look at and some different data types, and then we'll talk about some of the conclusions. And so the research context has to work in many different directions. We could take a look at language like Lorenzo, who talks about how teachers adapt texts when they have to teach and communicate more effectively. Or we could look to content like Gajo, who shifts the focus from language to the idea behind the language. Or we could shift the focus once again like Clegg and talk about how learners struggle with this very challenging learning context. Or we could look at attitudes like Fortinet, who tells us that teachers across Spain, professors in the university, are a little bit uncomfortable when they have to teach through a second language. And so you can see that this project is a little bit about language, a little bit more about teaching, but mostly it's about people. And so this action research frame begins with research questions and data types. Our first research question gives us student interaction. Will Spanish students interact in English with their Spanish professors? The next data type will compare student results with students taught in the first language and students taught in the second language across 18 subjects. And the last data type will give us affected data, which will be talking about a student survey, what they feel about the overall experience. And so let's take a look at interaction. You can see 9 subjects were the object of this study. I sat in on these classes and counted the times that the students interacted. The greatest number was 81, the lowest number was 6, and you can see that there's a great disparity. The student groups remained fairly constant throughout these observations. So what was different was the subject itself, but you can see the same teacher had very different results with a different subject. Or even in this last one with algorithms, you can see that he had great interaction in a practice section and less so in a lecture session. And what I learned was that content classes are not measured by interaction. Language classes are measured by interaction. So perhaps this is the wrong measure for content integrated learning. The next data we're going to look at compares first language with second language, the final results. And so 9 subjects in Spanish, which was first language, 9 subjects in English, and you can see that there's great internal consistency in these subjects. Professors thought the subjects were a little bit better taught through English, but the overall data shows them to be exactly the same. I consider this a great success for this bilingual program. The final reaction we're going to look at is student reaction, this overall reaction. You can see that it was quite positive. I collected 42 surveys across these 9 subjects. This student sums it up, hardly could be better. Lots of positive reactions in the open questions. But I did want them to look at this critically, as being taught through a second language is a challenging event. And so I established 4 variables. The first one, was it difficult to be evaluated, here at the bottom, through a second language? Were the professor's skills challenging? Were your own language skills a problem? And finally, were the contents complex? And you can see, as it should be, what they found most challenging were the contents themselves. And so we've been assessing bilingual implementation. We've been linking process data with performance data to talk about this bilingual program. And we've been doing so because we're committed to integrating content and language in higher education. We are committed to linking our choices of action, our many choices of action, linked with language, with teaching, and with attitudes. These choices of action will be the key to success in all bilingual programs throughout Spain. Thank you.